Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Anantkoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Namacharya Shri Haridasta Kaur ki, Prem Segaho Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Advaita Acharya's appearance day ki, Gaura Premanandi, oh glorious December, oh glorious December, oh glorious December, glorious glorious to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Lord Advaita Acharya is the incarnation of Mahavishnu, whose main function is to create the cosmic world through the actions of Maya. This is text 13 now. Advaitam Harina Advaitvad, Advaitam Harina Advaitvad, Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat, Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat, Bhakta Avataram Isham Tam, Bhakta Avataram Isham Tam, Advaita Charyam Ashraye, Advaita Charyam Ashraye, Advaitam Harina Advaitvad, Advaitam Harina Advaitvad, Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat, Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat, Bhaktavataram Isham Tam, Bhaktavataram Isham Tam, Advaita Charyam Ashraye, Advaita Charyam Ashraye, Advaitam Harina Advaitad, Advaitam Harina Advaitad, Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat, Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat, Bhaktavataram Isham Tam, Bhaktavataram Isham Tam, Advaita Charyam Ashraye, Advaita Charyam Ashraye,
Advaitam Harina Advaitad,
Advaitam Harina Advaitad,
Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat,
Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat,
Bhaktavataram Isham Tam,
Bhaktavataram Isham Tam,
Advaitam Acharyam Ashraye,
Advaita Charyam Ashraye,
Advaitam Harina Advaitad,
Advaitam Harina Advaitad,
Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat,
Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat,
Bhaktavataram Isham Tam,
Bhaktavataram Isham Tam,
Advaita Charyam Ashraye,
Advaita Charyam Ashraye,
Advaitam Harina Advaitad,
Advaitam Harina Advaitad,
Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat,
Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat,
Bhaktavataram Isham Tam,
Bhaktavataram Isham Tam,
Advaita Charyam Ashraye,
Advaita Charyam Ashraye,
Advaitam Harina Advaitad,
Advaitam Harina Advaitad,
Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat,
Acharyam Bhakti Samsanat,
Bhaktavataram Isham Tam,
Bhaktavataram Isham Tam,
Advaita Charyam Ashraye,
Advaita Charyam Ashraye, Advaitam, known as Advaita, Harina, with Lord Hari, Advaitat, from being non-different, Acharyam, known as Acharya, Bhakti Samsanat, from the propagation of devotional service to Sri Krishna. Bhakta Avataram, the incarnation as a devotee. Isham, to the Supreme Lord. Tam, to him. Advaita Acharyam, to Advaita Acharya. Ashraye, I surrender. Translation. Because he is non-different from Hari, the Supreme Lord, he is called Advaita. And because he propagates the cult of devotion, he is called Acharya. He is the Lord and the incarnation of the Lord's devotees. Therefore I take shelter of him. First time, well not the first time, but significant times of coming in contact with the form of Advaita Acharya stick in my mind. In Mayapur, the new Panchatattva had arrived. 2 big long semi-trailers. The devotees were jumping up on the semi-trailer, the deities were all wrapped, and they were indicating or locating the different murtis, and they were embracing them. Actually, they weren't embracing the murtis, they were embracing the forms of the deities which were there for dressing, for the mannequins, the fiberglass forms, not the real forms of the deities in this huge manifestation of Panchatattva. Lord Caitanya weighs 3.6 tons. So Advaita Acharya would be around 3 tons. Once they were installed on the altar, that was a 2-day event. First had to get them up on the altar, and that required one crane, which wasn't big enough, so they had to send it back and get a more heavy-duty crane to lift them up off the truck. Then they had to be dragged up on the altar and positioned. The floor had to be reinforced. 6 tons, 5 of them, 15 tons. 15 tons of deity. So then they had to be maintained. Worship was going on. There was a big Maha Abhishek, and Srinivasa was involved in organising the big Maha Abhishek, which took about 4 hours. There was tons of ingredients used to bathe them. So much ghee that I think the 1,000-gallon tank was half full of liquid and ghee, and it all got distributed. Everybody took. Towards the end, the little Gurukul children were getting into the tank and scraping up the ghee and passing out buckets full of it. We're coming out and had to be scraped down. They had so much ghee all over them. And then, after the Abhishek, they were considered installed, and then the polishing and dressing was begun. It took about 3 months to sort out how to polish the deities properly. We tried different methods: Ganga, mud in copious quantities to get a shine, then reduced it down to just a fine film, and then refinements of and the big deities, they're so big you can only polish 1 per day. So they're on a schedule. So Monday is the Greater Acharya's Day, and Lord Nityananda every Tuesday, and you go on rotations, and there's 2 or 3 people per deity. One person just focuses on their lotus feet, the lotus platform and their feet. You seen their shoes?
Yeah.
Lord Nityananda's shoes came here. No kidding, this big. So it happened to me quite regularly that I would get to polish Lord Nityananda's feet, and polishing, applying the mud, and going around backwards and forwards from front to the back, and hard work and sweating half an hour of just polishing hard. Lord Nityananda stands like that. Yeah. And so Advaita Acharya is right next to him, saying like this. And as you're shinning around, often Lord Nityananda would hit you in the head. Bang! So it was probably what I was doing in Vairacharya, that I wasn't so attentive to Lord Nityananda, I was attentive to Vairacharya. So in Vairacharya, through Lord Nityananda, would give you a good whack. And he didn't budge. One devotee, our friend from Melbourne, was almost doing chin-ups, holding off Gauranga's arm. Just so strong, so powerful. And it's said that the posture of Lord Chaitanya, he's got his arms raised like this, inviting, welcoming, asking everybody, please come in and take shelter of me. But actually Advaita Acharya, he's glorified as the person who's giving the initial shelter. He's the one who's brought Lord Chaitanya down. He's the one who called Lord Chaitanya down. He's the one who is most approachable as an example to the devotees. Lord Chaitanya, he's a sannyasi. Advaita Nityananda is Avadut sannyasi. So whereas Lord Advaita Acharya, he's the exemplary grihastha. Another time it was Advaita Acharya's appearance day, and due to the ups and downs of life, I was feeling rather distressed, and somehow I managed to get up onto the stage and to be involved in the bathing of small Advaita Acharya, and felt appeased, felt relieved, and then the rest of the day was wonderful. When the original process was there, and the Srimad Bhagavatam give me more details, there was a discussion backwards and forwards about Advaita Acharya, whether he should wear a beard. He's not old. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in this particular form, this particular mood, then he appeared around 50 years before Lord Chaitanya. He appeared, I've got the Bengalis, maybe somebody can translate them back to me into the Christian calendar. Advaita Acharya, he appeared in the year Sakabda 1434 and disappeared 1559. How many years is that? Who's good at maths? more than 100.
115 years.
125. 34 to 59. 1434 to 1559. So he was with us in the manifest form for 125 years. He caused Lord Chaitanya to descend. Navadvip was in a degraded situation. The atheists were complaining about the devotees. Vaishnavas, you're just howling all night. Krishna, Hare Rama! Because your bellies are empty. You're just begging for food, howling like this. And if your Lord was truly concerned about you, then you would be looked after. A sign of the Lord's mercy is you've got 10 or 20 palanquin carriers to move you around, and you're opulent. But all of your worship, all of your crying, you're still poverty-stricken. So all these nasty digs and comments. So this distressed Advaita Acharya. And Haridas Thakur, who was also an elder at that time, they met. Advaita Acharya and Haridas Thakur, they met, and Haridas Thakur appeared in a Muslim family. But Advaita Acharya would always invite him for meals and feed him. Haridas Thakur would say, no, you'll get so much criticism. It's wrong. I'm an untouchable. Advaita Acharya said, no, you are the Namacharya, you're the topmost Vaishnava. Feeding you is equivalent to feeding 10 million Brahmins. He would glorify Haridas Thakur. And they would get great solace by gathering together and chanting, glorifying the Lord. In the atmosphere of no Vaishnava behavior, just degraded behavior, impersonals. So they were upholding the tradition. Advaita Acharya specifically, the way that he summoned Lord Chaitanya, he had read, he'd seen in the scripture, he'd heard, that the Lord can be purchased with a palmful of Ganges water and tulsi leaves. So he was daily performing his shalagram puja with a palmful of Ganges water and tulsi leaves and mantras, kirtan, offering the normal mantras, and then kirtan. It was not normal kirtan. There was Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It was so much feeling, so much yearning, so much desire to call the Lord. It would regularly become roaring like a lion. The word is hunkar, thunderous calling, petitioning of the Lord. You have to come. Without your presence, then the situation is not going to change. So Advaita Acharya did that for probably 30 or 40 years at his house in Navadvip. You can go to Mayapur and you go and visit the house of Srivas Pandit. His house is famous for being the place where the first kirtans, where the Sankirtan party, the Sankirtan movement began. They would have their nocturnal kirtans. So just next door, up the road, is the house of Advaita. And next door to Advaita's house is the house of Vedanta. And in Advaita's house, not the house is no longer there, it's just a monument. So there's also a shalagram there. And some say that it is the shalagram that Lord Advaita was petitioning. With loud calls of Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Thunderous, roaring like a lion. And that sound, because of the quality of the sound, Lord Chaitanya, he told him, I was sleeping on the lap of Ananta Sheikh, and you're calling, waking me up. And I heard it and I became inspired. What's going on? I've got to go down there and relieve him. This type of kirtan became infectious. Advaita Acharya, I'll read it to you from the Chaitanya Bhagavatam. Advaita Acharya, he was instructed by Lord Chaitanya to dance. And until that time, Lord Chaitanya, he would appear as still as a young boy. He hadn't publicly acknowledged his divinity. So Advaita Acharya, he inspired the devotees with his own compositions. He was the one who was at the first stage expressing who was the Supreme Lord. One day, Advaita Acharya, immersed in divine bliss, said to all the devotees, "My dear Vaishnava brothers, let us sing today only about Sri Krishna Caitanya, for he is the fountainhead of all incarnations. Today we will not sing about any other incarnations of Godhead. He has delivered the whole universe and has invented only for our sake. Today, we devotees are respected simply because Sri Gauranga has himself propagated the congregational chanting of the holy name, the most valuable treasure in all the three worlds. You all sing his glories and I will dance. If you are fearful that the Lord will find out, then sing more loudly to drown out your fears." Sri Chaitanya was always trying to hide his real identity, so the devotees were afraid to sing about him as the Supreme Lord, lest he would find out. However, they could not disregard the instruction of Sri Advaita. Therefore, they began to sing about Sri Gauranga, while Sri Advaita danced with bubbling exhilaration. The devotees experienced unbounded joy as they sang about the eternally new and unique incarnation of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Advaita then took the lead himself in singing his own composition. He sang, Sri Chaitanya is none other than Narayan, the ocean of mercy. Friend to distressed and suffering, please, Lord, be kind to me. Other devotees, as led by him, sang, all glory to Sachinandan, the son of Sri Sachimata. All glory to Sri Gaurachandra, the supreme lord of Vaikuntha. All glory to Gaura Gopal, who loves Sankirtan, who is beloved of the devotees and who is death personified to the atheistic demons. Sri Advaita danced oblivious to the external world, and the devotees glorified the transcendental qualities and activities of Sri Chaitanya. You see how Sri Chaitanya, the Supreme Godhead, sings in jubilation and rolls in the dust in ecstasy. He is the Lord of Vaikuntha, but has incarnated as a Brahmana to propagate and himself relish Sankirtan. His bodily luster puts the brilliance of gold to shame. His beauty is a matchless sight. His hands extend down to his knees. He wears the robes of a renunciate and becomes inebriated with the ambrosia of his divine self. How skillfully he dances. Then Sri Advaita began to sing another composition of his own. All victory to Sri Gaurasundara, the ever-expanding ocean of compassion. All glory to the Prince of Vrindavan. Yet now he has appeared as the hero of Navadvip. Kindly offer to me the cooling shade of your lotus feet. Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur, in the beginning of one of his chapters, he says to Lord Chaitanya, please give me the charity of your lotus feet in my heart. Their poetic expressions are amazing. Gradually picking up in tempo, the kirtan built up with the devotees experiencing increasing joy, and Sri Advaita danced tirelessly, thinking only of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya. The compositions were new to the devotees, so they enjoyed the kirtan even more. The ecstasy that descended upon the devotees is indescribable. Only Sri Nityananda could fully narrate this wonderful happening. Hearing loudly and clearly the full-throated kirtan, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the crest jewel of all sannyasis, arrived at the venue. The Lord beheld a magnificent scene where the devotees were radiant with divine bliss as Sri Advaita danced in ecstasy. The devotees felt no fear as they loudly and openly sang his glories as he stood there in person. Sri Chaitanya had always maintained a mood of humble servitorship to the Supreme Lord. He always repeated, I am the servant of Lord Sri Krishna. No one had ever dared to call him the Supreme Lord in his presence. However, now on the strength of the potency and position of Sri Advaita, the devotees sang fearlessly, glorifying Sri Chaitanya as the Supreme Godhead. Listening to his own glorification for a short while, he seemed to feel ashamed. The Supreme Lord is the original Shiksha Guru, instructing spiritual master of the universe, and therefore he quietly left the venue just to teach everyone the proper etiquette. This, however, did not deter the devotees from singing even more loudly the glories of Sri Chaitanya. Advaita is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tracing back, he's non-different from Krishna. He comes from a slightly different angle. He is considered to be an incarnation of Mahavishnu and Sadashiva. So slightly different mood. In Mayapur, there's another beautiful deity, Hari-hara. Hari-hara. He's one side black, one side whitish. He's a combination of Hari and Hara, Vishnu and Shiva. So Advaita is non-different from the Lord. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There's different ways to refer to devotees. We respect devotees. We call them Bhakta, or we call them Prabhu. What's the difference between Bhakta and Prabhu? Bhakta indicates one who's performing bhakti. Prabhu means master. So we have different relationships with even the devotees. Amongst the personalities of Godhead, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are Prabhus and there is Mahaprabhu. So they're all Prabhus. Everybody is a servant of Krishna. Even, as we just heard, Lord Caitanya, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a form of etiquette, he instructed everybody, we should act as a servant. We should act as a servant. Specifically Advaita Acharya and Lord Nityananda, they are Prabhu, but they're not Mahaprabhu. They take on the mood of service. This is something that Advaita Acharya, Advaita, he's non-different from the Lord. Acharya, he came to teach. He came to teach that non-difference from the Lord, but as the mood of a servant. Dasa Abhiman, it's described as Dasibhav, Dasabhav, Dasa Abhiman. That the servant of the Lord experiences more pleasure in that mood than being the Lord. To actually, Lord Chaitanya, his verse, Gopi Bhata Padakamalo, Dasa, Gopi Bhata Kamalo, Dasa Anudas. I worship the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, who is effulgent, and I understand in my mood I am a servant of a servant 1,000 times removed. So this mood of being a servant, of being subservient, Ekale Ishvara Krishna, Arasabhya Bhritya, that there is only one Supreme Lord and everybody else is their servant. So Lord Chaitanya, he's the Supreme Lord, but he's also acting in that mood of service. So it's a way that it becomes more approachable. You can actually relate to somebody who's like that. If he appeared only and solely as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exhibiting his power, he doesn't do that, the scriptures say, because then people would start to imitate him. In the time of Krishna, there was the Poindraka. Poindraka appeared. He was at a distance from Lord Krishna, and then he issued a challenge. Come here, give me back my Sudarshan Chakra. Give up your false claim for the Sudarshan Chakra. I am the Supreme Lord. And Krishna, he responded, he went there to challenge him. And when he got there, he saw Poindraka. He was standing there, and he had two fake arms. He was trying to cheat people, and he was trying to imitate the personality of God. So people would do that. They'd be inclined to do that. But to imitate being a servant, many people, they're reluctant to become a slave. But the mood of service under the Supreme Personality, the mood of service, if you are employed as a servant of a big person, then it's quite a glorious position. You can't just walk in there and rub shoulders with them. You have to humbly be trained how to properly perform your service. And once you are fixed in that service, then you're living in the same place. You're enjoying the same privileges without the heavy responsibilities. It's a very exalted position, a very satisfying position. So Advaita Acharya, he is the Supreme Lord, and because he was older, Lord Chaitanya used to always offer him respect as a senior. And Advaita Acharya couldn't stand it. So he developed a plot. He went and he would hear Mayavadi philosophy. And so obviously you hear and then you start to repeat what you've heard. He started to demonstrate that was his interest. Lord Chaitanya heard about it. And in an angry mood, went and approached Advaita Acharya, challenged him, and then started beating him. Advaita Acharya was in ecstasy. Oh my Lord, thank you so much. You kindly recognize my actual position. I'm just your servant. Thank you. He was so satisfied. It was also, that was illustrated very, very profoundly. We were in Poland, and we were doing on the Woodstock tour. we were doing a drama based on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Muni was looking for the topmost devotee. Who's the one who received the most mercy? So he went and he visited different people, and they would say, okay, he's the king of such and such, he's such and so great, but if you want to know somebody who's even better, then go and visit the Pandavas, or go and visit Hanuman. And Narada Muni would come and say, oh, you're the most exalted. So this devotee had that part to play, and his response was, no, I'm just a servant. I'm just a servant. So profoundly, so strong, and such a strong impression to become the servant and to be happy with being the servant and being reveling in the glory of, I can just serve. Hanuman, he was also praised, and he showed his actual position by opening his chest and showing his heart. And in his heart was him offering respects to Ram. And then again within that, endlessly on the servant of the servant. This is the mood that Advaitacharya is teaching. One of his very sweet pastimes was twice there's descriptions of his inviting Lord Caitanya for a meal. Lord Caitanya had just taken sannyas, and so he was wanting to go to Vrindavan. And Lord Nityananda and two other devotees were travelling with him. And Lord Caitanya, in his typical mood, was chanting and dancing, oblivious to where he was. So he was wandering towards Vrindavan, but Lord Nityananda wanted to keep him back amongst his family and friends, Mother Sachi, in the area of Navadvip. So he directed him to Shantipur. Advaitacharya, he has a house at Shantipur. He called the Lord, and when he got an idea that the Lord had descended, he shifted away from Navadvip to Shantipur for reasons of his own, to expand the teaching, to deepen his realization, to be in a mood of separation. He moved to Shantipur. So Lord Chaitanya's dancing 3 days, just dancing, oblivious. And Lord Nityananda was directing him towards Shantipur. There were some cowherd boys. Lord Chaitanya saw the cowherd boys and became an expert. I'm getting close to Vrindavan, the cowherd boys, Krishna. Lord Nityananda called the cowherd boys aside and he said, if he asks where we are, tell him we're approaching Vrindavan and point him that way. So Lord Chaitanya, and then he came towards the Ganges. Lord Nityananda had also arranged for Advaitacharya to be there in a boat. So Advaitacharya was there in the Ganges, and Lord Chaitanya saw him. He said, Advaita, what are you doing here in Vrindavan? And Advaitacharya, he said, my Lord, wherever you are, that is Vrindavan. And he said, please come to my house. Please come and honour me. Give me the satisfaction of serving you prasad. So Lord Chaitanya had been fasting for 3 days. He said, okay. Advaitacharya raced off, and with his wife together they collected all of the ingredients. Sita Devi, the wife of Advaitacharya, who had bore him 3 or 6 sons, difference of opinion. His number 1 son was Achyutananda. Achyutananda, according to the Gauraganich Tipika, is a form of Kartikeya, the son of Lord Shiva. So Advaitacharya, Sadashiva, son of Lord Shiva. Achyutananda, Krishna Mishra, Sri Gopal, these 3 sons were devotees. The other 3 sons were not devotees. Advaitacharya had 6 sons. Sita helped Advaitacharya cook. She got all the ingredients together. She prepared the shark and cut up all the ingredients and handed them to Advaitacharya. And Advaitacharya lovingly, fully immersed in pleasing Lord Chaitanya, cooked and prepared wonderful dishes. And then Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya, they arrived and observed what Advaitacharya had cooked. He made an offering on the altar, 3 different plates, 1 metal plate and 2 banana leaf plates. And then Advaitacharya said, okay, please my Lord, come and sit and take prasad. And Lord Chaitanya said, okay, just put those plates aside and we'll take a little bit of prasad. Advaita Acharya said, don't you worry about it. I'll look after you, because he intended that he would just take one of the plates off the altar and then give it to Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya, he sat, Lord Nityananda sat. Lord Chaitanya said he'd been fasting. Lord Nityananda also had been fasting. Advaita Acharya started serving them, and Lord Chaitanya was taking. Advaita Acharya was serving. He'd give them some preparations, and then he'd take the pots back and he'd top them up again, fill them up again, so he could give them so much prasad. And Lord Chaitanya was saying, "Oh, I'm eating so much." Lord Nityananda said, "You've invited me to your house. I thought I was going to break my fast, but you haven't fed me anything. I'm still. What sort of a Brahmin are you? What sort of a guest or a host are you?" And Advaita responded, "You reject Paramahamsa? You're supposed to be renounced, but you come into the house and you're not accepting what I've got to offer." And backwards and forwards, they were in the name of criticizing each other, they were glorifying each other. And eventually Lord Nityananda, he just got frustrated. He picked up a couple of grains of rice in his hand and threw it on the floor. And a couple of those grains of rice, they landed on Advaita Acharya's dhoti. He started dancing in ecstasy and we were touched by the remembrance from Lord Nityananda. And on and on. Then they finished their meal somehow or other. Advaita Acharya encouraged Lord Chaitanya to lie down, and he smeared his body with sandalwood and gave him garlands, and they took rest. Another time, Advaita Acharya wanted to feed the Lord, but normally when Lord Chaitanya would come for lunch, all the other sannyasis would tag along. You get a big respectable personality going to a meal, and you get all of his servants, and they have to be fed. So Lord Advaita, he wanted just to feed Lord Chaitanya. He wanted to feed him fully, to his full satisfaction. So he, in his mind, he'd invited the Lord, and the Lord had agreed, and all the other sannyasis, they were, "Oh, we're going to have lunch today." Advaita Acharya, he desired, "I just want to feed the Lord alone." So he started meditating. How is it possible? And just then, it was noontime, so the sannyasis and Lord Chaitanya, they went off to perform their midday duties. Chant the Gayatri, take bath. And this huge storm came up, this huge blizzard, dust storm. And the sannyasis they just got blinded, they were bewildered, they didn't know where they were. But Lord Chaitanya, and also in Advaita Acharya's house, it wasn't so bad. It was a mild storm. So Advaita Acharya, he was satisfied, he kept on cooking, and he was still desiring. And Lord Chaitanya, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he understood what was in the heart of his devotee, so okay, off to lunch. And Advaita Acharya, he saw, he recognized, he's coming on his own. And he started praying to Indradev. Thank you for making this arrangement for the storm. Lord Chaitanya heard him, and he said, "Why are you now praying to Lord Indra? This is just a small show. You're so powerful, you're such a wonderful devotee of the Lord to create such an arrangement." And Lord Indra, he was just waiting for the opportunity to serve you. And then he sat down. Advaita Acharya served him all the different preps, hundreds of preps, which he prepared, 10 different types of shak. And he offered them to Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya, he ate them and he put a little bit aside. And then after a while, he pointed out to her, "The reason I'm doing this is because there's such wonderful preparations. I want you to describe what you've done, how you've prepared these preparations, how you've cooked these." And after preparing a meal and eating a meal, Prabhupada in the Caitanya Charitamrita says, if one can cook and prepare and offer such foods to the deities, then Krishna will be very pleased. This is Advaita Acharya displaying the mood of being an ideal householder, being the servant of the Lord, being the Supreme Personality of God, being a devotee, how to please the Lord. To offer elaborate foods saturated with love, saturated with that mood of absorption, pleasing, trying to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Advaita Acharya, often he would have festivals as at his home, One festival which you attend regularly when you go to Mayapur is the Shanti Festival. 2 or 3 days before opening, the devotees they hop in 10 different buses. There's been an advanced crew. They've been cooking for 24 hours, preparing khichdi to serve all of the guests who are going to arrive. A feast for about 30,000. There are specific advertisements. Come and get a feast. ISKCON took over that festival about 30 years ago because the locals, they couldn't maintain it, was growing so well. And there's also a scriptural advertisement that if you take prasadam at the house of Advaita Acharya on Madhavendra Puri's appearance day, then you'll get love of Godhead. Just by taking prasadam. So the devotees are enthusiastic to go along to that festival. One year they forgot to announce it's today, so they cooked up enough food for 30,000 people. 30,000 people. In a couple of woks that big. They cooked for 24 hours, khichdi, 2 sacks of dal, 1 sack of rice, 30 kilograms of chili, a whole lot of bay leaves and other spices and salt, and using big oars. They do about 10 or 12 of those. Once they cook the khichdi in the big woks, karais, boats, they use oars to stir it with. Then they transfer the khichdi into concrete pits, like a 10,000 litre rainwater tank. They fill it up with hot khichdi, and it stays hot until the time of the festival. So they forgot to advertise, but the devotees, they just took the kirtan into the next village and announced, and suddenly pouring out of the forest were these thousands and thousands of people. My first intention in going there was I was going to take prasadam and I'll get love of Godhead. But that was soon put aside. You've got to start serving these people. Grab a bucket. But then we were overwhelmed, so they said, put down the bucket. Wash the leaves. We don't have anything to put for them to put prasadam on. Wash the leaves. The leaf plates. So, stop! There's too many people. Guard the leaves. Other devotees will come to stop people from stealing the leaves. And then, stop doing that. Just start directing people. Tell them where to go. Crowd control. And people kept on coming up to me and speaking in Bengali. So I said, here's a mantra. Ami Bangala Janina. And also I was settled. I was able to do my service. Ami Bangala Janina means I don't speak Bengali. So they'd immediately go away and ask somebody else directions. And then after a while, the khichdi ran out. So a big announcement, get on the bus, run! Because we were going to be mobbed. Amazing experience. That's the way you get love of God. By going and taking prasadam at the house of Madhavendra Puri, on Madhavendra Puri's appearance day. Watch time would have such festivals, the Bengali mood of bliss, ecstasy, excitement. And everybody would come from their different places, from Jagannath Puri, and he would accommodate them all, and he would make arrangements for prasadam, for feasting, feeding them. So when you have a festival, you have to look after your guests. Then you'll get their blessings. When we have a marriage or some auspicious time, we want to feed the Vaishnavas. In Mayapur, you'll feed 4,000 people. They'll come along readily, and then you fill them up to the neck, then they're satisfied. Then they give the blessings. But if you can't do that, just feed one exalted devotee, satisfactorily, fully. Invite a sannyasi. In Mayapur, Janani and Pankajanga, we were often invited for prasadam. Janani Prabhu, he was making special requests for his Vyasa Puja. His cook, what can I prepare you? And so Janani Prabhu, he listed off a few different ingredients, a few different preps. I want this, hot. I want dal, hot. I want sabji, hot. Because when you get invited to all of these big feasts, unless you're expert at keeping the prasadam hot, then the guests just get served cold prasad. I know many devotees, they think that this is where you're supposed to take prasad, cold, out of a yellow bucket. Hot prasad. So the Advaita Acharya, he was expert at making these arrangements and completely satisfying everybody, giving them accommodation. The Advaita Acharya is the exemplary grihastha, 6 sons, living at Shantipur, had a house in Shantipur, had a house in Navadvip, maintaining the devotees, and teaching by example, the pristine glories of being a servant, how to honour the Lord, how to please the Lord. His loud chanting came about because of his enthusiasm. Haridasa Kaur, he was chanting how many rounds a day? 192 rounds, 300,000 names of the Lord daily. So 100,000 he would chant silently. 100,000 he would chant audibly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. The other 100,000 he would chant at the top of his lungs. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, 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 Hare Hare. So, Advaita Acharya, his enthusiastic chanting, his roars caused Lord Chaitanya to descend from the spiritual world. So much feeling, so much love, so much concern for the conditioned souls. Advaita Acharya, concerned for the welfare of the conditioned souls. He's said to be the inaugurator of the Sankirtan movement. And we've been fortunate enough to come in contact with the Sankirtan movement. We can please Advaita Acharya, we can please Lord Chaitanya by spreading, giving, inviting other people to come and hear the holy name, take prasad. Our practice, as coined by Srila Prabhupada, is chanting, dancing, and taking a little bit of refreshment. Chanting, dancing, refreshment, and then discussing philosophy. Advaita Acharya Mahasaya ki jai. Advaita Acharya Prabhu ki jai. Go. Any questions? Shut